Okay, today we're talking about the health kit and assessing wellness. So we'll talk about our assessment tools that and what they show us with different things. Okay, so first of all, the reminder that we're doing deep emotion release and a formula circle in Logan Saturday. So, yes, May 16th. If you haven't heard about it, let us know quick. Hopefully, if you're seeing the replay, you get this in time. All right. And we do have a few spots left. Okay. And then we're doing a drawing next Tuesday, the 19th. Um, all that you have to do is fill out the questionnaire, like the survey, which you might want to wait a few more days if you just started the formulas, like say second weekend in April at the Be Healthy Utah event, for example. We're getting close to about 30 days from that. So just giving yourself about a month with them and then fill out the survey so that we get an idea of how they're working for you and can support you even further. So the Crown Origin Oil, for those who haven't seen this, it works for the reversed crown chakra. So what you see when you have a reverse crown chakra, it usually comes with along with spiritual sabotage, a faith crisis, addictions, conflict with God, and loss of personal power. And so this crown oil corrects that, and in so doing can help really support getting those issues resolved. So, and it's been really amazing how I've used it over the years, and I've seen within an hour people start to turn around. Their whole countenance changes. They get out of bed. They they start talking about life in a different way, like they can get through it kind of thing. So the blend includes frankincense as the divine masculine and myrrh as a divine feminine influence, and then sandalwood, which provides a ultra high frequency, and clove, which provides auric protection. So, yeah, I've seen it consistently align the crown chakra, dispel darkness and density, and support the direction, faith, and freedom of those who I think intention still matters to some extent. Willingness maybe is all you need, and it's amazing what how it can do the rest. So that we're giving away a 5 milliliter bottle next Tuesday. So you don't have to be present to win, just fill out the survey. And we'll have Joanne put that in the chat as well as in the links that come with the video replay. Awesome. So that's the news. All right. So we've been talking about 4 life area kits. I realized, so I have a library. If you haven't seen the library, know about that. It should be coming out in the emails for people that have purchased formulas. So you can access older videos from about 5 years ago that I did when I first had the formulas. They were first put together and the first people were purchasing them. And they're about 30 minutes per formula. I thought, there's no way I'm going to do 30 minutes per formula again. So I had this download of how the formulas can be supportive in a kit format. So you don't have to work with all 4, but the 4 formulas we're talking about today are, we talked about interpersonal, so that was a couple weeks ago. We talked about mind-body connection last week, which includes the Vital Radiance and Transformula, which are pretty popular. And then today's kit is for our health in general, healing disease, instill wellness, positive polarity, and patient. So those are the ones you're going to hear about today. All right. So first of all, to understand all of this, how it works together, I got my private label on the formulas the same year that I graduated with my doctorate from Quantum University. So there's something about what was going on synergistically with all of that. And part of it is the training I got from Quantum University really equipped me to understand the formulas better. So I'd been using them for 5 years before that, but I didn't really understand how they worked until I did my training with. And it's a quantum training. So here's the first question in understanding the nature of this is to understand what is entropy. So entropy is a term in classical physics, I believe, and it It's defined as the lack of order or predictability and gradual decline into disorder. So it's the reason that suns burn out. It's the reason that um, when you have sand or, over time, there's a ton of like wind, right? It'll create the arches, right? If anybody's been to southern Utah or Moab, the arches are created by entropy, by the gradual wearing down, but it's kind of a beautiful version of entropy. There are less beautiful versions of entropy in aging, in people who, I supported my mother on hospice a year ago, and it was a painful sight of entropy, the breaking down and wearing down of a body. And I watched it. I did watch it, and I was like, oh, that thing that she started doing 5 years ago led to this, and I could see it, but it's kind of too late when it's too late, especially with our physical health, right? So, okay. When does entropy begin? There is a big question. Does entropy with someone who dies of old age or of, health deterioration, when does that begin? Does it begin like when the symptoms are a certain level, or at a certain age? It's an interesting thought, right? So it actually begins the moment of birth is when entropy begins. Isn't that wild? So the parallel is when you pick an apple from a tree, entropy begins. So you have a few days of like, oh, this looks beautiful, but entropy has already began, even though it looks good still. And there's a further ripening maybe of it. So there might be part of the process that's not deteriorating yet. But then once it's fully ripe, then what do you have? Then you have bruising. Then it softens more. It starts to smell. If you cut it, it doesn't look as white on the inside, right? So that's entropy, but it actually started the second you've picked it. So birth is the moment entropy begins for us as humans when the umbilical cord is cut. Isn't that interesting to think about? So there's a lot of growing, just like the apple ripening. And then you get to a certain age and things start to go the other direction. So, yeah. So in what ways is entropy affecting your health? So this is what you want to look at because you may be young, but still, and there was a research, and it's in my book, Four Bodies, Four Medicines. The research they explained and I think it was Blue Cross Blue Shield started to look at like, okay, what should we plan on for the next, decade as far as health issues? And they started realizing that millennials, people in their 30s had already began to the entropy process and their health was declining. They showed on a chart like it's already going downhill. Diabetes and anti or uh, autoimmune diseases, a lot of things will start in the people's 20s and they start to see like there's more of that now than there used to be. So consider your entropy. Is it aging? Is it skin elasticity? Is it your hair thinning? Disease, diabetes, mineral content. Oh, that's an interesting one. Is that our mineral content, I understand we get it from it's birth, generational. Like our mineral content comes through our mother. Okay. And if it's already low in that generation, it's going to be even lower in the generations to come, which is one theory why there's more childhood behavior issues, is because the mineral content isn't there for brain chemistry and, well-being, emotionally and mentally. So energy levels can be deteriorating even in young ages. My daughter in her 30s is has got a lot of entropy going on with her energy levels and probably some diabetes a little bit. Hormonal balance. I started experiencing serious hormonal imbalance at age 12. So 11 to 12, right? When my puberty started for me, I was a wreck and it didn't get better for the most part until I found quantum solutions. Telomeres, if anybody's familiar with that term, that is something that can be actually observed in microscopic levels of the DNA, that there's, telomeres are like the full DNA is present. And in aging, there's a reduction in telomeres. So that's one way to gauge how much entropy has happened in a lifetime. Okay. All right. So the opposite of entropy is negentropy or syntropy. They're both used in quantum university. They use the term negentropy, and this is from my notes. Um, it means things become more in order, or the tendency of all living things to reach higher levels of energetic output to transform. So this is not classical conditioning anymore, or classical, sorry, not conditioning. Some of that happens too. That's a psychology thing. This is not classical physics. This is quantum physics. So classical physics is, if you look at this midline here, is everything that goes this direction. That is entropy. Okay, so this is thermodynamic. This means like um, that, thermodynamic being like heat is going to go down, and it's not going to be as hot. It will, just like a star eventually, right? So, and and then everything on the right of this is quantum physics. The idea that consciousness can increase and organization can increase and life can be the result, greater life. So there's people talking about like an awakening process. And the awakening process, I think, is getting more traction, more interest. And that's more or less when we shift our own center, our own point of attraction and experience into this quantum life force energy kind of thing. Okay. And so it's more or less so this centropy, the tendency of all living things to reach higher levels of consciousness, of energy, of life force and organization. It's kind of what it's saying. So it's possible. And there's more and more tools and supports for that. Okay. One of them is healing disease. So this is the one that reverses disease patterns, increases biopsych cooperation. So basically the mind and body, we talked about that last time. So the mind body connection has a role in negentropy or syntropy, and that is we can choose to live in this higher belief and faith based, possibility. And so this is where, so a couple of examples of what this is. When someone has a near-death experience, they have just been to the quantum realm, they return with a complete transformation. Like disease is gone. One example of that is in Dying to Be Me, I believe it is, Anita Morjani. So I was actually in the same room with Anita Morjani, and I could literally feel her life force energy. She was not pronounced dead, but she was in a coma for, I don't know if it was days, but it was medically recorded. And she was in late stage cancer. Her cancer had reached the point of completely riddling her body. I mean, from head to toe. Nobody has a picture of it because it was so horrendous. And so her family was gathered around her saying goodbye. And she was spending that time on the other side in a place of consciousness with light, with total life force energy. She came back into her body fully. She came out of the coma. And within 6 weeks, she was cancer free. And this is medically documented. So whatever she returned with is the most significant essence of this I think I've ever been aware of. And to the point where years later, she was speaking with Wayne Dyer, and I was in Maui hearing him and hearing her speak. And I was actually listening to her book on the way there because it was like 20, 30 minutes away from the hotel. And I got there and I was like, at first I thought, the first day of the retreat, I'm like, oh, Wayne's got this powerful love energy and you just feel it. And then by the second day, I realized, oh no, it's her. So it was amazing. Okay. But that is something that you can't really bottle, except you kind of, there's things in here that allow for that to be supported on a whatever level we're ready for, right? Or we can allow in. So, intentions with healing disease. It supports peace with what is happening in the world, allows a sense of fairness to replace injustice, encourages a view of beauty in life and the world at large. So, this is, you can imagine this. It's like we're not just looking at ourselves as being in centropy, but the world is becoming brighter. It's becoming more alive. It's becoming a better place and not a worse place, right? Replaces feelings of hate with neutrality or acceptance, relieves feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness, increases empathy, openness, cooperation, and harmony. So, some of the health related intentions are that it supports the epigenetic correction of chronic conditions and supports key bodily organs to operate optimally, including, oh, that needs to be replaced. Anyway, endocrine, the endocrine system, muscular, respiratory, immune system, cellular, and gastrointestinal systems. And it supports a quantum shift. So, a book that supports this, I think we mentioned it last week too, with Transformula, is by Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And there's types of meditation that can support this as well. So, quantum wholeness meditation is one that people have learned with me. I developed that in about 2018. It was part of my dissertation. And it was interesting that I was using guided imagery first with people and coaching them, and there's power in that, especially if you bring in light or angelic presence. That can do some of this as well. But there is something about the zero, like completely clearing your mind and allowing that consciousness to come through you and to you in its own organic way and not in a way that we prescribe or narrate. So that's kind of the difference between those two. And then 0 Point Meridian or tapping is also a good way to shift that, because if you're reversed, and we talked about that last week as well, if your energy body's reversed, you're in entropy. So you want to get that switched to out of reversal. All right, so that's healing disease, and understanding that I think will, sets the stage for other solutions. So the next formula in this set is Instill Wellness. So this is the one that works with the endocrine system specifically. It also supports meditation and relaxation. So like I mentioned, and isn't that interesting that it all kind of works together? If you can find that quantum silence, that's where the healing can happen. And we don't have to go to the other side to do it. We can actually connect with that other side through that 0 point. It's a powerful thing. So you get ego completely out of the way. That's the trick. And we read in A Course in Miracles, and this is one of our favorite, things that we add to this. We do study A Course in Miracles on Mondays and Fridays still. And, we have even talked about specifically about the body. In fact, most recently, I'm going to pause this just to share it because I think it's kind of fun to add it in. That the ego is what keeps the body in its role of entropy. So the ego and the body can work against you together. They can kind of team up against you. Isn't that interesting to think about? So the ego is, it's basically holding us in our body condition. All right. And so think about how easy it is to become a victim of a physical problem or a health condition, right? So it's one thing to like to be truly suffering because of pain or because of like inflammation or something that you feel like you can't control. But if your mind catches hold of that too much, it'll make it even worse, right? And so if you've heard of mind over body, the idea is that your mind can actually start to support the neg entropy by suggesting other things. So in mindfulness training, your mind gives you a different focus point instead of the pain, instead of the inflammation or chronic condition. You're focusing on what is right. And sometimes, and it's so funny, it's your hair. Your hair is not suffering one bit, They talk about bad hair days, but it doesn't feel the pain, and it's just interesting to even sit with that or your earlobes. Your earlobes are probably okay in this moment. And your maybe your pinky toe is happy. So the trick is to just find that aspect of yourself that is it's kind of a neutral. It can just be a neutral, but neutral is actually as powerful, I think, as positive, especially if you're being true. Like if your goal is to have, to be honest with yourself, you may not be able to say, "Oh yeah, I'll just pretend that I feel good." But you might at least find a point of neutrality. And neutrality is that bridge. So the bridge, and we talked about this in A Course in Miracles, is that, let me find where we read this, that the bridge is the where God dwells, or the end of the bridge. Okay. So, so here it is. For you will realize that the only value the body has is to enable you to bring your brothers to the bridge with you and be released together there. The bridge itself is nothing more than a transition in the perspective of reality. On one side of the bridge, everything you see is grossly distorted and completely out of perspective. What is little and insignificant is magnified. Think about that. Like a little flaw becomes bigger than it should be, right? And what is strong and powerful is cut down to littleness. So the ego mind will basically say, "Oh, prayer, that's that little thing. But the pain in my tooth or the fact that I have a scar here or whatever, it's like I can't I can't do this or I can't do that or I'm, limited. So it's interesting that, and just notice that in your own life, like where you give power that actually is littler, it could be littler in your perspective, and where you haven't given power that could be bigger if you give your power there. So neutrality is one of those things. And so anyway, so that's the idea of the bridge. And so it's basically saying the body really doesn't do you a whole lot of good, except it does allow you to connect with others. It allows you to even teach others to say, "Hey, I figured this out," or share experience, strength, and hope with others. Use your voice, use your influence. Okay. And that will pull people out of chronic conditions really fast, even. Like if you have a moment, a miracle moment, and then you share it, you've just expanded it, right? Okay. So those are the kinds of things. So instill wellness allows you to get to that center of yourself and be true to yourself. And it harmonizes your meridians and it balances your endocrine system. So intentions with instill wellness is to create a sense of emotional empowerment, to restore well-being on all levels, to draw out talents and stimulate creativity, like finding that guided imagery in your own mind, like what would peace feel like, look like, what color is it, how does it smell, and create that mindfulness around peace, or create that mindfulness around relief. Would relief be a circle or a square? Would it be pink? So it's just really bringing the power of your visualization out too. It can energize the heart and release inhibitions. In the vital body, it enhances intuition and meditation practices. It allows the soul to express itself, and it strengthens and balances the meridians, like we mentioned. Health related, it works on the entire body holistically, especially the endocrine system. So endocrine is your thyroid, your adrenals, your basically your sex, hormones, basically. So what, masculine, it would be the testosterone levels, feminine, we've got a whole pile of them. So that type of thing. And it instills harmony in the physical being, relieves exhaustion, excellent for relaxation and sleep, neutralizes the side effects of treatments. So someone who is, let's say, coming out of cancer, who is doing chemo, Instill Wellness, you probably want to take it every 30 minutes during chemo or, 5 times after or something. And, it could really help with that. But also just having to take, a corticosteroid or something else that can do some damage as well as good, both, it'd be really good to take Instill Wellness. Okay. It neutralizes, like I said, side effects of treatments. It alleviates a healing crisis. So a healing crisis, I'll tell you the one healing crisis that I've heard of that I think is really interesting. So the founder of the formulas had at the time, I think 12, 13 of them. And he had a client in California. He boxed him up, he shipped him out, and then he heard that this individual ended up in the ER after the formulas. And he was like, well, wait, talk to me, help me understand, because I've never seen a side effect from these formulas. Like, tell me what happened. And the guy says, oh, well, I took all 13, you know, 7 drops of each or whatever. And that's not how you're supposed to do it. So, so he went into a full-blown healing crisis. He was in the ER. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. It was because everything was trying to get right, and it was just throwing him into a crisis. So anyway, so that's what a healing crisis can do. So he was told just take Instill Wellness for a few days until you're, back to normal. And anyway, so I thought that was an interesting story. But that's one of the things it will do, and it resets systems to status quo. So like if you've taken something, I have a client who her son took psychedelics. That's a thing right now. There's a lot of people saying, try these for the awakening experience. Well, I'm not going to say whether or not that's going to work, but he's never been the same. Like he didn't come all the way back from that. And so he needs his systems probably be reset to status quo. So it might be good to take these, and sometimes you'll need it more than 2 weeks, but sometimes that's enough. So using the affirmations, that type of thing, really does help. So it's suggested to take this before you meet with a health practitioner to amplify your results, and use it with quantum wholeness meditation or other meditative practices. So I'm going to tell you the story that, it might be a little TMI, but it's a good story. Okay, so I had an IUD at age 35-ish, and I had, no, actually it was age 40. So my last child was born I was 39 years old, and then I got the IUD at 40. And so I had been on that, and it helped kind of manage I told you I had hormonal issues since age 12. So they were all over the place with pregnancy and everything. And it did kind of help. But I also knew that I wasn't resolving the core issues. And so I was setting intention 5 years later. So this was around the time I got the formulas, a little after I found the formulas. And I was setting intentions to really have my endocrine system healed. I actually had it on a vision board. Endocrine system is healed. I had it right there. My hormone balance is optimal, right on the board. And so I went in to have it replaced because it was one of those things you had to have every 5 years, And I'm on the exam table, and the doctor's very seasoned and has done this many times, is struggling, and it's not a pleasant process. I'll just say that. And I finally passed out cold. And he said, I am so confused. I do not know what happened. I could not replace it. We're not going to try to, but we got one out. We just didn't get the other one in. And so you're without an IUD now. And I'm like, oh, I understand what's going on. That's Instill Wellness. I didn't tell him that, but I didn't ever have that replaced ever. So I was able to achieve that ideal hormone balance. I mean, this is miraculous. I was literally going on, 35 plus years of ups and downs, and it wasn't, nobody was having a fun time with that. So I literally found it after finding Insta Wellness, and I took it a few cycles, because you can take it a few times, and it just kept working. So I made it through menopause without hardly a skip in my beat, and it's just been working ever since. So And that's the thing is that remember these are like libraries. So the library I needed at 45 is different than the library I needed at 55. But the libraries are all inclusive. So it just works with what you need when you need it. And it's been really interesting. And I have gone through some interesting, like little bit of dips here and there, but each one of them has had a purpose. And so still, I'm still like continuing my journey. Okay. Until, oh, and then for the men in the room, Todd also has taken Insta Wellness and has his goal has been to resolve his testosterone levels. And it's been really interesting to watch that he navigates it. It's not just like a one size fits all. It's not like, okay, take this and now I've got my solution. It's like you continue to take the formulas every few months or whatever, and I'll notice that solutions shift a little bit. So he's gone from different formats of testosterone supplementation and had different, but anyway, he is healthier now. He's lost 70 pounds almost, I think. And he looks better, and it's so cool when, like, I can say I look better and I'm healthier than I was when I was 30, honestly and for real, at 57. So that's what I'm noticing with the formulas is possible. Okay. And next one we'll look at is positive polarity. So this is one that it does a few things. So one is it balances polarity and extremes. It is a self-healing booster. It inoculates negativity and balances, it mentioned balances polarity, but it helps. And when I use that word inoculates, remember that has to do with vaccines. So I'm going to go to the health related ones first. You can take this before or after vaccinations to neutralize potentially negative effects. And I've even heard now called vaccine injuries, which some of this, I don't know how much of this is set up because it was developed before the COVID vaccine, but you can set intentions with it as well, I think. And but it supports the release of vaccine-related toxins trapped in the body, and it works with the polarity in the brain. So it relieves stress on organs due to pathogens, supports remedies and treatments for autism, and boosts the body's self-healing systems. So there's some cool things that this can do. And again, use it with quantum wholeness meditation, which is a brain integration style of meditation, and other brain integration techniques. And that is all works together. So the intentions is to balance the polarity and extremes, enhance self-esteem and personal integrity. Isn't that interesting? It encourages you to follow your own truth without conforming to group pressure, which is one of those things. As you look at the next few, it's the vaccine agendas, right? Allows you to remain at choice when exposed to others' agendas, helps you to see the bigger picture, and reduces stress and negativity. So those are some interesting ones. A couple of the, affirmations that go with that would be, my decisions are mine. I attract positive experiences. Oops, there we go. Oop, back. Um, so I'll say that again. My decisions are mine, and I'm aware of a higher truth that guides me personally. I attract positive experiences and results. So let's do a little bit of quantum wholeness meditation, should we? Would you like to try that? I don't always share this. So, okay. So with quantum wholeness meditation, the goal is, and there's a little more to it, but we're going to give you the quick version. So the goal is to get your feet on the ground. And feet on the ground allows you to connect to the earth, to that divine source below us, and then connect your spine up. So you want your back straight, but like the tip of your head is pulled up to connect you to higher source. Take a deep breath and then bring your fingertips together. Okay, and this is what we call whole brain position. So this is what makes quantum wellness meditation an integrative process, a brain integration tool, is that you're connecting the power of your fingertips, which are full of neuro information, and it parallels the brain's synapses, or not synapses, but the corpus callosum and the left and right hemispheres as you connect yourself. Take a deep breath in. And when you exhale, it's like you're exhaling every thought. You can imagine a whiteboard being erased as you take a deep breath in. That's your eraser. As you exhale, every word flies off, every attempt to change the board, it's empty. You can always breathe into your heart as well. Sometimes the heart holds pain or emotion. Just let it go with a deep exhale. And at the end of that exhale, notice the silence. And we'll do that again with the heart. Deep breath into the heart. And exhale to the silence. Notice this also resets the nervous system. And as you come back, you just kind of wiggle your toes and your fingers, shift your shoulders. And if you're doing this alone, sometimes it's helpful to do it longer and set a timer, but to also just allow thought to come to you, which could come from somewhere other than your ego, is the idea, with information. So it's a way to access information. Anybody have any feedback on that, insight on that experience? Silence is not easy for some. In fact, most people I think I talk to are not in silence. Do you have something to share?
I felt peaceful.
Peaceful, good,
Yeah, I
awesome.
felt like I needed to cry a little bit, but
Yes,
I
thank you for
decided not
sharing.
to cry.
Okay, well, do that again. I challenge you, do it again, allow the emotion to come out because it does cleanse and it creates more of that neutrality and potential for healing.
You said neutral form of healing.
Neutrality sets a stage for healing
Neutrality.
because it's like you can't force it, right? You can't just bug God until you get what you want. You think about a wise, teacher will allow for silence. It doesn't have to be, they don't answer for you. They don't give you something too fast. They allow you to find the answer in that silence. Okay, thank you for sharing. All right. So the healing journey is definitely part of our, I mean, it's a mind, body, emotional journey and spiritual. That matters a lot. So in this polarity, the problem with polarity is, in fact, I use that term, the problem with polarity, because it's two sides of a battery, say, and polarity can actually have a lot of charge. It has a lot of charge to it, really, right? And that's great if we've cultivated it and it's where we want it. But that charge is not great in relationships, right? It's not great when we're trying to drive, in traffic. That polarity can be an inner conflict and too much charge and an outburst and dysregulation, right? So the neutrality is the space that neutralizes the charge. It's the silence is the space that neutralizes the charge. So the silence is, it's like there's unlimited possibility, is really what that is. Okay, on to the final formula. Patient. So you see this word pace in the patient. And in the intentions, that's one of the things it does is it increases patience and acceptance. It balances oversensitivity. It's good for people who push themselves too hard, compromising their immune systems. It encourages discipline and reliability. It supports a pragmatic approach to combating anger and stress, like, you know, step by step, count to 10, go to a quiet place, write down your feelings, things like that. Encourages appropriate pace and movement with life, processes, and work. So this is for people who are overactive, who are basically workaholic maybe, or they burn out. So it can prevent that. So health-related intentions alleviates illness and fatigue, increases energy through bodily systems, especially the immune system, eliminates microbes and prevents illness. So if you start feeling yourself going, like there's that telltale sign that you're getting a cold or something because you're just tired, it's like, where did this come from? That's the time to take this, and supports a speedy return to wellness. Vital body and energetic intentions includes gym technology, which is fun. And it can be really good to take it with silver solution. So there's a silver solution that is it doesn't taste bad. Okay, so you just drink it. You take like a tablespoon or two, and it will kill even malaria. Okay, so I learned about the silver solution when I was in India. And I wasn't excited about taking the vaccine or the pills for if you were to get malaria. Like they say, okay, you don't have to have the vaccine, but if you start getting sick, you have to take these pills and they'll have all these side effects. And I was like, ugh. And it was while I was there that I learned about silver solution, that it works so well that I even sent a good sized bottle of it to an orphanage in Africa where they had like a couple kids that were, because malaria can kill you just from the loss of fluids and, being unable to eat and hold it down. Like it's scary. And so, anyway, so we sent it to this orphanage and it only takes like a day or two and there people are right back to their health. So, anyway, it's crazy, but it can do that not just for malaria. So, imagine if you can do that for something that serious, what it can do for like typical parasites that we get from pets and pork and whatever else, we're eating junk and it's feeding the sugars and the sugars are feeding the yeast and it's whatever, right? So, um, all that stuff can be taken care of in some cases with silver. So, also using meditation and stillness. Look, there's a theme and utilizing a time budget or a daily planner. And then you might want some herbal immune boosters like astragalus, echinacea, and golden seal. Those are some of my favorites. So these are things that I literally have not dealt with illness for years because I've been taking the formulas partly. I think that mostly. But before that, I had to take a lot of astragalus and a lot of echinacea and a lot of golden seal. So that's funny I'm saying that. I'm like, I don't even know if I have any in my cupboard anymore. So, but as we're reversing disease patterns, herbal things can be really good part of that. And then the time budget, I thought about doing that this week. So we might want to share that, Joanne. Maybe add that to our gifts for today. So the time budget, and here's how you do it. And you can do it with your own like spread or not even a spreadsheet, but you could use a spreadsheet. But it's 7 columns, okay, for each day of the week. You just do it for 1 week. But in this 1 week, you can shift things in a really profound way because you become super aware of how you're spending every 30 minutes. So you break it down into, is it hourly? Maybe it's hourly, but sometimes I'll cross through the hour, so it's every 30 minutes. And so you've got hours from like 7 a.m. to like midnight is what was on mine. And so from 7 a.m. to midnight, I am tracking everything I'm doing and for 7 days. And you just do it for 7 days. But at the end of that, you will be more accountable to every choice you make and how you organize your life and what priorities you have, where you're wasting time, where you're not even noticing, it's a powerful tool. So patient is really good to take during that week because you're also adjusting yourself to, well, to fill out the form, right? So if you have to, even just taking the time to fill it out will change your your daily schedule and routines and awareness. And so anyway, it's a really cool thing. What I've learned. So then at the end of that, you categorize the schedule, like how you've spent your time, and you can look at like how much time is going to different activities, whether it's work or family or, service or recreation, self-care, all those things can be in that. Okay. So that's our formulas. And so the role of patient is I don't take it as a routine. I take it as needed. But you could take it if you're trying to shift some of these patterns or boost your immune system in general, um, or alleviate like chronic kinds of um, low energy or fatigue or illness patterns. Okay, so there we go. There's this 4. Now we're going to spend a few minutes talking about assessments. And so I'm going to just explain that when people were taking formulas a year ago, they were enrolled in at least something like a 6-session journey. And so I'm going to talk about the six-session journey, but a lot of people were enrolled in a 4-month program. And I know how they did from these assessments. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, can we still track change and progress with people using the formulas on their own? And are we going to see the same kinds of results? That's my big question. So here's the assessments, just so you know a little bit about them. So one thing that I like to rate is life satisfaction. So this is a score or a scale that is just 7 life areas rated from a 1 to 10. The highest score you can get is like a 70, and the lowest score you can get is a 10, like if you were to rate 1 on every item. Okay, so it's from 10 to 70. So they rank from 20 to 60 generally, from very low satisfaction to highly satisfied. So here's an example of someone who did a 6-week journey, who at the beginning, so this is just 6 weeks, and she had, I think, 6 formulas. So she was taking a different formula each week, and then um, she was doubling them up. So they were overlaid. So she took each one for 2 weeks, and she did it 6 to 7 weeks of that. So she started on October 17th, 2025, and she finished on November 29th, 2025. And look at the change in her life satisfaction using affirmations, using the 6 sessions, the 6 individual sections that go with this. She went from a 30 to a 64. Isn't that wild? So below average satisfaction to highly satisfied in 6 weeks. Okay, I love it. Then we also gave her mindfulness and self-compassion scale. So this scale is designed to rate these 3 different scales are included. Okay. So one is the satisfaction with life scale, which is a little different than the 10 the items that were rated 1 to 10. It's looking more at like, if you had your life to do over again, would you do anything different? Definitely yes or no. I'm satisfied with my life. the cognitive and affective mindfulness scale. So we just talked about mindfulness. Imagine how much could shift if you were doing mindfulness training with these formulas, right? And clearing emotional stuff at the same time. So that's one that's included. And the self-compassion scale, which is the short form by Kristen Neff. Okay, so she's well known for her research on self-compassion. So all these are combined. The highest number you can get is a 138. Most people get around the 80s, which is average. And okay, and then 120 is excellent. So let's just see how our client did. So Tiffany, that we're calling her, um, again, we have the same dates here. She started with an 87, so in that average range. She went all the way up to a 127. So these are looking at things like how aware she was of her moment to moment experience and how she felt about herself, because she was getting that ego out of the way. That's part of our training is get that ego out of the way because it'll make you feel like crap. It really will. And other people too, sometimes. Okay. Mental health inventory is another one we do. So the mental health inventory assesses 7 different types of mental health conditions, major depressive disorders in there, persistent depressive disorder, which is a little bit different, is in there, hypomania, which is the roller coaster. Oh, sorry, hypomania is the high end, but not really realistic to live in. And then cyclothymia is the roller coaster. Generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and ADHD. So those, the highest you can get is like 120 something. And people that still have some symptoms, like they, a lot of us carry around some anxiety, some depression, right? It's pretty normal. But we're typically in the 30s range, if we're high functioning. So that's the mild severity. Okay. So Tiffany was actually doing pretty well. She was only 29, just carrying around a few of those symptoms, but look at she dropped all the way to a 5. I've seen a 6-week journey take people from like an 80 down to a 40. So it's typical that people will drop significantly in their negative scores. So that's the one we want to see lower. The other ones we're trying to raise, but that one. And then the last one is our frequency assessment, which measures 5 life areas: physical, psychological, spiritual, financial, and social. Keeping in mind that our global humanity is around a 200 frequency. United States is kind of in there, I guess, too. A little bit higher maybe, but this is what Tiffany did. And this is what I think is so interesting is that she didn't come in saying that she had health issues, but she did come in saying that she wasn't exercising or eating the way she should. And so one of the things that happened as a byproduct of the 6 weeks is she got herself exercising and eating right in 6 weeks, right? And so that changed her physical condition from 250 frequency to a 409, which is nice. That's a really good place to be. Psychologically, she wasn't that bad, so that's why it didn't change a whole lot. But look at her financial. She started living in abundance. She was actually doing the abundance protocol, I think, was the formula she was taking. And it went up dramatically, right? From a 250 to 450. Her social frequency went up too by a few points. So it's just really interesting. And that's so interesting that she was leading with her physical. So if you remember how the rock climber is, right? Look at that spiritual 490. Like, I'm just going to be spiritually fit and everything else will just have to come along behind me. So what I love about this is her spiritual frequency dropped 10 points to allow everything else to come up, right? With her psychological kind of being her torso, which, it's like she was just right there ready to shift everything, right? But her footholds were her lower ones, her financially thinking her um, health, those came up. So then everything else has that potential. So that's a fun journey. And that's so 6 weeks to a complete transformation. So this is Andrea Haynes, who is the one-on-one provider of the Love Solve method and Zero Point Meridian Technique, which are part of this whole process. And we can add quantum wholeness meditation training in with that too. So it involves frequency formulas, this emotional transformation tools, The framework is all there for the healing. And I'm the one that does the pre and post assessments because that's what lights me up, you can tell, right? So, but that is still just 777. So it's basically the cost of a typical, in fact, I think it's less than typical therapy. When I was looking at it, it's 120 to 150 a session, I think now for therapy. And we're just keeping it at 777. And that includes these really robust assessments. Just beat entropy, right? You have just turned this thing around and we can show it, which is awesome. So that's our offer. And if you're not sure, but you're kind of interested, I will also do a full, and this is like a really good deal because for $300, I figure the full assessment and it's graphed and everything, and you get your whole picture of all those four that we talked about, normally would be like $300. If I were to just charge for that, that's what I would charge. I actually offer it for $99 on my site, my Calendly. You can get it, but I'm actually going to do it for only 44 for our formula package people. So people who have purchased four or more formulas, I'm doing it that whole pre-assessment for 44. So if you're interested in, and maybe we can talk about what that would look like if you wanted to do the full succession program. There, we can also do a payment plan with it if that's an issue, but that will allow you a chat with me and a whole picture of where you're at and what we can do to support a shift in multiple areas. So there we go. Okay. I think that's my whole thing. Oh, next week we're going to talk about the mood kit, which that's my first kit. And so if you look at the four different kits, we incorporate every set, or basically four of each are all different in each, and it covers all 16. So there we are. Okay, now we got to, oh, we're already at 1 o'clock. Sorry. So if we have any questions, please, we have time. We'll make time. Debbie, that might have been new for you. New stuff. And Debbie's so fun how
Yes,
she's been able to get,
that was new. Thank you.
yes. And I love how she's been able to show that it's basically negentropy in live blood analysis that you're
Cool.
taking. Yeah, that's what you're showing us.
Yeah, I'm really excited about your kit, the
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 new kits.
formula kit.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
And I think it helps to just kind of have it all put together in a way that people can kind of just move into it and, you know,
mhm.
there's themes. So it just was very inspired. Like yeah, I met with my coach and she said something that made me think, I think I could do something like that. I could make it simpler. That was her goal. Is like, how can you, if you want to scale this, you got to make it simpler. How do you make it simpler? So she put the challenge to me. So that's what I'm hoping is in sharing this with people, it will make it simpler.
Yeah, I think it will.
Okay. Cool, cool. Tamra, do you want to add anything? Thanks, Carissa. It's good to have you. I'm glad you're getting the training. It's good to have. Yes,
Just thank you for sharing.
for sure. Yes. Oh, so make sure you get oh, and Debbie, we have your version. Did you get your version of I think I confirmed with Joanne the frequency formula survey. So your people can be in the drawing for next Tuesday as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll
Wonderful.
share all those.
I'll
We'll communicate the results with each other.
I'll
So we'll
go
make
look
sure.
at that.
Yay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, cool. All right. And yeah, just grab that link or watch for the email to come out. It'll have it in there too. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you,
Yay.
Christine.
We'll see you. Bye.
All right.